Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I wanted to share some advice regarding the topic of having a stance towards fitan. What is the mawqif? What is the stance of a believer, or in particular the person that adheres to the methodology of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah regarding the trials and tribulations, the fitan that transpire out there from one land to another. So before I begin, inshallah, with some words of advice of Sheikh bin Baz, I wanted to mention that sometimes people perhaps may be running away from one extreme and they fall to another. So the best approach is always the moderate stance, al-wasatiyya. Because as Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, quoting on Qatada, he said, إِنَّمَا حَدَثَ الْإِرْجَاء بَعْدَ فِتْنَةِ ibn al-Ash'ath, showing that some of these innovations of the past, they occurred as a reactionary measure to another innovation, where they were trying to counter an innovation, but they end up going to another extreme. So in our day and age, we find a lot of people, they want to put away and rid the people from extremism of what people have done and towards how they apply some of the principles of the Salaf. They went into extreme. So some people, they went to another extreme of watering down those principles of the Salaf. We want to mention that there's always a middle course, taking the mainstream approach and not allowing your hatred for one extreme lead you to another. So, an-nar la yutfa bin-nar. Fire is not put out with fire. So here I'm going to share some words of Sheikh bin Baz, which is quite interesting, where he clarifies there's tafsil, there's a detailed answer regarding the topic of should you have a stance for every fitan, and we'll share here the audio.
الفتن التي لا يظهر وجهها ولا يعلم طريق الحق فيها ملتبسة.
So here, in the context of the speech of Sheikh bin Baz, as he speaks about the hadith that come that a person should avoid fitan, and when it appears issues arising, to try to distance yourself from those scenarios. He's clarifying that these are fitan where the truth is not clear from falsehood. Not scenarios where a person, he can find out the truth. In those scenarios, he won't apply those hadith, he's clarifying. We'll continue on with his words. Rahmatullahi alayh.
هذه المؤمن يجتنبها ويبتعد عنها بأي ملجأ. ومن هذا الباب قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم يوشك أن يكون خير مال المرء المسلم غنم يتبع بها شعف الجبال ومواقع القطر يفر بدينه من الفتن. خرجه البخاري في الصحيح. ومن هذا قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أيضا لما سئل أي الناس أفضل قال مؤمن مجاهد في سبيل الله. قيل ثم من؟ قال مؤمن في شعب من الشعاب يعبد الله ويدع الناس من شره. المقصود أن هذا عند خفاء الأمور وعند خوف المؤمن على نفسه يجتنبها. أما إذا ظهر له الظالم من المظلوم والمبطل من المحق.
So he says now the second scenario of the types of fitan, if it becomes clear to you. He says, as for a scenario where the person who's wronged is clear from the one who's causing wrongdoing, and the person in truth is clear from the one in falsehood, then there's a different chance. Here's his answer.
الواجب أن يكون مع المحق ومع المظلوم ضد الظالم. وضد الموطن.
And he says, in that scenario, it's wajib. Not just I have a choice. It's wajib for you to be with the person being oppressed, supporting him. The victim of wrongdoing. The person, he said, if you know he's in truth, to be with him, supporting him. This is the words.
كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم انصر أخاك ظالما أو مظلوما. قيل يا رسول الله كيف أنصره ظالما؟ قال تحجزه عن الظلم فذلك منعك إياه فذلك نصر. منعه من الظلم هو النصر. ولما وقعت الفتنة في عهد الصحابة رضي الله عنهم اشتبهت على بعض الناس وتأخر عن المشاركة فيها بعض الصحابة من أجل هذه الفتن كسعد بن أبي وقاص ومحمد بن مسلمة وجماعة رضي الله عنهم. ولكن فقهاء الصحابة الذين كان لهم من العلم وهو أكمل صاروا مع علي لأن أولى الطائفتين بالحق وناصروا ضد الخوارج وضد البغاة الذين هم أهل الشام لما عرفوا الحق وأن علي مظلوم وأن الواجب أن ينصر.
So here he gives example that what transpired in the time of the Sahabas when they came to know that Ali ibn Abi Talib was with the truth, they aided him and supported him against the Khawarij and also those who transgressed him. So this is the stance, and he gives the hadith, unsur akhaka zaliman aw madluma. Aid your brother, whether he is an oppressor or being oppressed. And he explains with the wordings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to prevent oppression from your brother who's being oppressed and to stop the other from continuing his oppression. So this shows you that it's not absolute that we just avoid and we have a choice and I don't have to have a stance, leave me be. This is not correct. And it depends. And this hadith is general. He's your brother if he's in a different land and he knows he's oppressed, you have to be with the oppressed, supporting him. Whether it be bayna mustaqillin or mustakthir, and it may vary in levels. You may even say certain words of support for him, or you may aid him according to what you're capable. And yes, if you're not capable, then it's a different scenario. But to say, leave me be, it doesn't concern me, and this is not correct. This is not the stance of brotherhood. Brotherhood, it's not confined to a particular land or a particular race, or if it's a fitna in one land over there and this person's oppressed and I'm over here, it doesn't concern me. This is not the wordings that we should be giving out. And here I'm going to share some other words of Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili about this topic.
ما يجوز تقول اختلف الإمام مالك والإمام أحمد في هذه المسألة فاتركني
So here the words of Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili clarifies the topic when the scholars they differ in disparaging individuals. Some may praise and some may disparage. Those affairs of jarh, when one praises and the other one dispraises, it clarifies that once it becomes clear to you the truth, you can't come and say the scholars of the past, they differed about this topic or that topic. Let me be. Here he goes on to say,
في هذه المسألة فاتركني أختار. ما دام ظهر لنا أن الحق وأن الراجح هو القول الفلاني فيجب علينا أن نأخذ به. أما إذا تعارضت الأدلة فإن الإنسان يأخذ بالحق. فلزوم الحق واجب متى ما أضاء نوره في الفقه، في الحكم على الرجال، في جميع المسائل. وهذا هو الوسط الذي كان عليه سلف الأمة رضوان الله عليهم.
So he's saying in all various matters that whether it be in fiqh or ruling about men, when people are being labeled, whenever it becomes clear, it is wajib for you to follow the truth in that matter.
الإلزام إنما هو بالحق ولا يجوز للإنسان أن يترك الحق لقول فلان أو قول فلان.
So he mentions a good point, because a lot of times people, they say, don't force me. لا تلزمني. Don't force me with your opinion or your opinion of your sheikh. So no, we say the ilzam, it is based upon the truth. So once it becomes clear to you, or you know that a particular person has the truth with them, then it becomes binding on you to support the truth. You can't say, I have a choice in the matter, I don't have to have a stance. This is not correct. So these vagueness in words nowadays has to stop. You're going to cause more confusion. I know we want to stop and put an end to some of the extremism that occurred under the name of Salafiyah, but this is not the approach. It's going to cause more confusion. It's going to lead to another type of extremism, which is tamyi'ah, where everyone becomes so lenient. And there is no more particular correct type of mawqif. No one has a correct stance no longer in these affairs, because of these vague speech that people are going to confuse people by. And here are some words of Sheikh Ibn Baz regarding this topic of if scholars they differ in the matter of jarh wa ta'deel. A scholar praises another and the other one dispraises, one is being warned from. Well, here is advice, inshallah.
أنه من العلماء الصادقين. هل هذا من مسلك أهل الحق في شيء؟ لا بد من النظر في أقوال العلماء الآخرين حتى يتحقق الجرح والتعديل. أهل السنة والجماعة عندهم تفصيل.
So he says, لا بد من النظر في أقوال العلماء الآخرين. And when you must not be one-sided, you look at the other statements of the other scholars until he investigates the jarh or the ta'deel. He said, Ahl Sunnah, they have tafsil, they have a detailed answer. They look into the matter. But jarh wa ta'deel yunzar fihima, he says. Then he says, فالجرح مقدم على التعديل. That the criticism has precedence over the praise. Then he mentions the conditions. So he mentions a lot of affairs that sometimes it cannot be as been mentioned, the praise of a scholar. Just because the scholar is a great scholar doesn't mean that you can take his words for it. You still have to investigate. He says it's incumbent that we look into the matter. So you cannot say it doesn't concern me, and let me just take whatever opinion I want, or I don't have to have a stance. You should look into the matter, especially if you're a caller and people are going to ask you where to travel and who to take from. You should have some sort of stance to know and investigate, to know what's going on. يعني الفقه معرفة اختلاف الناس. Some of the Salaf used to say, fiqh, understanding, is knowing the differences of the people, whether it be in fiqh of jurisprudence or in aqidah or different matters, to know the reasons, to know the rajih min al-marjuh, what is more correct from that which is erroneous. The reason that I say this, because the scholars, sometimes they'll be speaking about one group, the groups that went to extreme. And they're probably speaking about them in a harsh manner. And then in another, perhaps, gathering, they'll probably speak about those who water down the methodology of the Salaf. So it's not come upon us to come and focus mainly on one side and just focus on those who went to extreme and take it to the level where we become on the other side, where we become extremely watered down. We should be in the middle course. And here's some words of Sheikh Salih Suhaimi, where he points out how there are two groups.
نحن ابتلينا بطائفتين الآن اسمحوا لي أن أكون صريحا طائفة متنازلة متخاذلة مميعة.
So he mentions that we've been tested and trialed in this day and age with two groups. One group, it is a group that resigns from the truth, the watering down things, and they're mutakhadila, he says, they're forsaken. So you probably tell him, support the truth, he'll forsake you, desert you. Say, I don't need to have a stance. Leave me be, I don't have to get involved. And everything is like that. Just, you can't expect him to do any nasr to you, support you, even if the matter becomes clear-cut. He says, I'll tell you, I don't have to have a stance. This is one group. Then he's going to speak about the other group that went to extreme, that went to a level where they perhaps label those who don't deserve to be labeled. And they compelled people in a scenario where they don't need to be compelled. So he's showing you that there's two opposites. Also, here's some more speech of Sheikh Salih Suhaimi regarding the principle, whoever doesn't declare an innovator to be an innovator, then he's an innovator. And he clarifies that this is not absolute principle. There's restrictions to it.
رحمهم الله. لكن كما قلت لابد من هذه الضوابط أن يكون يعني وصل إلى الحد الذي يبدع فيها كأن يكون داعية إلى تلك البدعة وأن يكون منهجه منهج من المبتدعة. أما من.
So he mentions from the restrictions, this type of person be someone upon innovation who calls to that. And this is where it perhaps applies, and he goes on to clarify.
وقع في زلة أو خطأ أو نحو ذلك يقال إن هذا العمل بدعة لكن لا يوصم الشخص بشكل عام بأنه مبتدع.
The other person who they're referring to as an innovator, he says, if he's just someone who fell into an error, a slip up, that you should. It should be said that this action is an innovation. However, the person should not be generally labeled as an innovator. So we're going to fast forward to another part that we want to highlight.
رضي الله عنها وأرضاها ولعن الله من أبغضها وقلاها. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام لولا أن قومك حدثاء عهد بكفر لهدمت الكعبة ولبنيتها على قواعد إبراهيم. فلا تمتحن الناس بمثل هذه القاعدة بغير هذه الضوابط.
He says, don't test the people with this principle that we just mentioned, where he said about whoever doesn't declare a person to be an innovator, then he's an innovator, without these restrictions and conditions, he says. So it's not absolute that we completely don't test people. There's restrictions to it. And it's not absolute that a person, if he doesn't see a person to be an innovator, then he's not an innovator as well. There's guidelines, there's restrictions.
الضوابط. فإذا توافرت هذه الضوابط ورأيناه يذوب مع أهل البدع ويدافع عنهم بعد علمه بخطورتها وبحكمها الشرعي.
So he says if these restrictions are met and we saw that he's blending with them and defending the people of innovation, have to be aware of his danger and his Islamic ruling, then he's going to clarify that we call this person an innovator with no respect. He's going to mention.
عند ذلك يبدع ولا كرامة. عند ذلك يبدع ولا كرامة، وهذا بشرط سابع، وهو أن تكون قد بذلت له ماذا؟ النصح والتوجيه حتى لا يبقى للنصح مجالا.
I said another condition is this is after you have already offered advice and guidance to the point there's no more room left for giving advice. Where's this in what people say now that you are forcing me to what your sheikh is on? No, if the truth comes with anyone, Ubaid, Uzaid, Fulan or Alan, any person it may be, a person who's upon the truth and he gives the words, can be one sheikh in this land or that sheikh. If he comes with the truth, Inna li sahib al-haq maqala, yani a person of the truth, when he speaks, it's to be followed, the truth in the matter. You accept it. You don't excuse it merely because this principle is initially used by the Haddadis, so now I'm going to absolutely reject it. No, there is some restrictions. We may accept this principle with guidelines and certain exceptions that the scholars have given exception for. For example, Sheikh Abdul Abbad as well gives an exception. We'll play his speech.
قد يكون في تجاوز الحد ممن يعني يرى أن هذا بدعة، فإن مثل ذلك ليس بصحيح، ولكن البدعة الواضحة الجلية يجب على الإنسان يبدع وأن.
So he clarifies when he was asked about this principle, من لم يبدع المبتدع فهو مبتدع. Whoever doesn't declare the innovator to be an innovator, he's an innovator. He mentions as well it's not absolute. Then he gives an exception. If there is a clear innovation, then it's wajib for you to declare that person to be an innovator. Once again, in those matters, you have no choice. You can't say, I don't have to have a stance. Once it becomes clear to you, there's real innovation and there's some real opposition to the manhaj of the Salaf, then those matters you have to have a stance, whether you like it or not. رضيت أو لم ترضى.
وأن يعتبرهم مبتدعة ولا يقول أنهم من أهل السنة وأنهم أهل سلامة، بل هم منحرفون بلا شك عن الجادة.
And you can't say he's from Ahl Sunnah after that. Once you know this.
وهذا هو الذي يكون يعني راضيا بما هم عليه أو مقرا لما هم عليه، لا شك أنه آثم. وأما
said the person who's pleased with this person who is an innovator or is acknowledges what they're upon and is okay with that, and with no shadow of doubt he's in sin. In sin. You can't say I have a choice in the matter.
أي شيء أن قد لا يكون بدعة، من الناس من يطلق على ما ليس بدعة أنه بدعة، فمثل هذا لا يقال أن من حصل منه عدم تبديع لأنه مبتدع.
Then he says there's another extreme. Some people that declare someone or label someone to be an innovator for something that they thought it was an innovation, but it was not. So he said in that scenario, we can't say the other people, they're innovator for not declaring that person to be an innovator. So it shows you there's some tafsil in the matter. It's not like the other extreme. People go to a level where they just water it down. When they want to refute one side of extremism, they go to another extreme. And why can't we just stay in the middle? Why do we have to always go to the other side? There's tarafan wa wasat. There's two extremes and then there's a middle. I don't know why we always have to skip the middle and go straight to the other side. Out of reactions and emotions, and someone did me wrong in the past and I had this bad experience, and as a result I'm just always on this side now. No, we should just put our emotions aside, al-awatif and these type of things, and stick to the middle. I'm going to share some more speech.
إذا كانت المسألة خلافية وليست اجتهادية فإنه يؤخذ بالقول الصحيح ولا عبرة بالقول الذي يعني لم يستند إلى دليل.
So here Shaykh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili clarifies that sometimes in Jarh wa Ta'dil it is not ijtihadiyya. It's not something that is built upon ijtihad, you just take what is correct in those matters that are not ijtihad. And he's going to give examples.
لو أن أحد العلماء قال فلان مبتدع لأنه يقول ويفعل وقال وجاء بأشياء منه، وعالم آخر قال لا لأنه لم يقرأ له وكل ما أعطي شيئا مثلا ما نظر فيه.
So for example, scholar says about one person he's an innovator, and the other one says no, because he doesn't read. Everything that's brought forward to him about those individuals, he probably doesn't read it. And even can be from the kibar, the major scholars. So here he's mentioning the scenario.
فهو يحكم على الأصل. هنا ما نقول المسألة اجتهادية والمسألة خلافية.
So here he's saying that particular scholar, if he continues to praise that individual, is based upon the asl of what he knew about him prior. But he said in this scenario, we don't say it's a mas'ala ijtihadiyya, khilafiyya, there's a different opinion, we can take either or. I don't have to have a stance. And here he's clarifying the difference. You can't use that as this person, he didn't read. And if he did see or come across these things, he would take a stand. That's why you find a lot of these mashayikh later on, when they came across some things about individuals, they took a stance. So this is something for us to pay attention to.
بل الذي علم مقدم على الذي لم يعلم وإن كان فاضلا فنقول لا نلتفت لهذا القول ويؤخذ بهذا القول. لكن إذا كان العلماء قال منهم قائل قولا وقال آخر قولا وكل له اجتهاده أصبحت المسألة اجتهادية، يعني كل له ما
Then he gives another example where it could be ijtihadiyya. That one said an opinion, another one said another opinion about the individual, and each side alleges their proofs, and it's based upon certain judgments, things that led them to that understanding. Then this scenario could be ijtihadiyya, he says.
في هذا الباب أصبحت المسألة اجتهادية. إذا أصبحت اجتهادية لا يعني هذا أنك لا ترجح. بل قد يظهر لكم.
And then he says, even in a scenario where it's ijtihadiyya, it doesn't mean that you don't take what you seem to be more stronger to be correct. You just leave it like that. Say, I don't look into the matter.
حان القادح فتأخذ به ولست بملوم ولا يحتج عليك بمدح المادح. وقد يترجح لك مدح المادح في هذه المسألة بالأصول الشرعية فتأخذ به ولا ينكر عليك بقدح القادح.
So he shows that in those type of scenarios where it's ijtihadiyya, and you were to take what you deem to be stronger, no one can critique you because you're just based upon your ijtihad of striving to the truth. This is what has led you to. It wasn't based upon desires. No one could critique you.
من هذا الباب ولا يحمل بعض على بعض ولا يحمل بعض على بعض ولا.
He mentions this scenario, no one will have anything against the other because it's based upon على حسب ما ظهر له. This person was made clear to him this upon ijtihad. So this is one affair.
المسألة مهمة جدا. يخطئ كثيرا من يقول لا إنكار بمسائل الاختلاف.
So now he says this is an important topic. A lot of people make mistakes about this. They come out, they outright say there's no inkar. You can't critique the other about these differences.
فبعض الناس مثلا يقول إذا اختلف المشايخ في رجل، أنا جبت هذا لأنه واقع، إذا اختلف المشايخ في رجل فلا إنكار، خلاص والمسألة كل يأخذ. لا.
He says some people, and the mashayikh, they differ about a particular man, what to label. Some people come out and say, oh, there's no inkar, there's no way, no one can critique, and we can take whatever we want, which stance. He said, no, that's not the case.
المسألة الخلافية ليست رافعة للإنكار. فإذا كان الخلاف يعني ليس مبنيا على أصول تجعل المسألة اجتهادية ففيه إنكار. لأن بعض المشايخ قد يمدح إنسانا لما يعلمه عنه قبل 20 سنة، والقلوب بين أصبعين من أصابع الرحمن يقلب.
It mentions that if it doesn't have things to indicate this is ijtihadiyya, then you can't say it's ijtihadiyya. He gives an example. A scholar might praise someone based upon what he knew about an individual 20 years ago. You can't come and say this is ijtihadiyya now. I'm going to take the stance of the scholar that praised him of something that he knew prior. Because the hearts are between the fingers of Rahman, he says, Shaykh. People can change.
كيف يشاء ولم يعلم بما جد وحدث. فهنا ما نقول المسألة اجتهادية. يكون صاحب ورع وأن يكون يعني بعيدا عن أن يظلم. وأنا أقول يا أخوة هناك شيء مهم جدا، قد يعذر القائل الأصلي ولا يعذر متبعه.
Another principle, it clarifies the Shaykh, is that sometimes we may excuse the original person who's praised an individual, but we may not excuse the person who follows that scholar. When two scholars are differing, we may not excuse the one who's following those particular scholar of one of the sides, but we may excuse that one. There's a reason behind that. He's clarifying.
أصلي ولا يعذر متبعه. قد يعذر القائل الأصلي، بل قد يمدح القائل الأصلي ونقول إنه مأجور، لكن متبعه لا يمدح. أعطيكم مثالا فقط. أنا إنسان من دولة من الدول، وهناك داعية معروف عندنا بالسنة، وكان معروفا بالسنة عند الجميع. بلغ أحد العلماء في بلد من البلدان عنه أشياء وقدح فيه بهذه الأشياء وهو محق، لكن أنا في البلد أعلم أن هذه الأشياء قديمة وأن الرجل تاب منها، ويقول أنا أتوب إلى الله من هذا الكلام. أنا نعم قلت، لكن استغفر الله أخطأت فيه وأنا تائب. أنت الذي علمت توبته لا يجوز لك أن تقدح فيه بقدح الشيخ، والشيخ مأجور على اجتهاده.
So here he gives an example. Like for example, a person is in a land and he knows someone to be a caller upon the sunnah, and another particular sheikh outside of the land heard about this person of certain things that was wrong about him and critiqued him about something that that caller made tawbah from. So he said here, you cannot take the statement of that sheikh because you know this person made repentance from it, recanted. So here it would not be permissible for you to take that stance. That sheikh, he's probably rewarded for his judgment based upon his ijtihad. This is what has reached him. But he has reached you something else. So you cannot come and say, I don't have to have a stance, or I can take this person's stance, I have a choice. This is not allowed. Shanqiti mentioned this. Sometimes a person, the scholar will be excused, but not his followers at times. So you cannot bring up about this scholar and say, so I'm in the same, well, if he's excused, then I should be excused as well. It doesn't work like that. So here's some speech of Shaykh Ibn Abbad. If the scholars, they differ regarding praising an individual, and one side praises, the other one dispraises, what should the people do? He has some speech, but we'll forward it to the exemption. Because a lot of people, they take Shaykh Ibn Abbad's speech, and they always exempt and remove the part where he makes some exemption to his speech.
الذي يليق بالمسلم أنه يعني يعرف الحق ويعمل به، ومن عرف أنه من أهل البدع الظاهرة الجلية التي لا إشكال فيها يعني وكان له طريقة ومنهج يوافق أهل البدع هذا يعني يستحق. وأما إنسان يعني حصل.
We mentioned someone that is clear, or he has a way that is inclined into their affair that is clear, then this type of person is added alongside them. Goes on.
زل في كلمة أو خطأ في كلمة ثم بعد ذلك تقام الدنيا يعني عليه ويحذر منه، هذا ليس من العدل ولا من الإنصاف.
And he gives another side where if someone who just had like a slip up, a little mistake, and then there's a whole issue because of that, that's not the fairness and justice. So it shows you that Shaykh Ibn Abbad, he is in the middle course. He doesn't go to the watered down side. I only mention one part. He has a moderate stance. Here's an example of Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen. A lot of times people, they have a tendency to quote the Shaykh and take some of his speech, and they leave off where the Shaykh himself, when certain things were informed of him that certain mashayikh have spoke about an individual, he took the correct stance, and we'll show you. So they're asking about Adnan Aror. He didn't come out and say, why are you asking me? He came out and said that people spoke about him. Yes, there was still difference of opinion at the time, but he quotes and cites there's people, mashayikh, have spoken about him. So they also mention specifically who the mashayikh, the three mashayikh that spoke about him. So Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen says these scholars, these three, are reliable to us. These are reliable individuals. That should be. If someone's, people are reliable and speak, and there's nothing to go against the criticism, then the origin is that you accept. And the Shaykh says, if these three scholars were to advise me, I would take their advice. And he's asked, would you advise technology? He's saying, if these scholars were to advise me about to stay away from him, I would stay away from him. And he responds by saying, the reason why? Because these scholars are reliable. So this is the affair. If someone knows that certain mashayikh are reliable, because there's this rumor that the difference between the mashayikh is personal, these are personal, why am I getting involved? Here's also some speech about this.
وأن الخلاف بين المشايخ المعتبرين ليس خلاف هوى وليس خلاف رغبات دنيوية وإنما هو دين.
It mentions that the differences between mashayikh about individuals are based upon whims and desires.
ويعود إلى ثلاثة أسباب لا بد منها.
And he mentions that it goes back to certain causes, the reasons of the differences. It's upon us not to consider the difference of a mashayikh in a different land, okay, they're just being personal. That's why it doesn't concern me. It's between them. Let it be between them. No, it's based upon deen. When something's about deen, it should relate to you too. And here's some words of Sheikh Yahya ibn Ali al-Hajuri. If we don't declare an innovator to be an innovator, what is the consequences?
جزاكم الله خيرا. ويقولون هل يبدع من لا يبدع المبتدعة بعد التبيين له بالأدلة الواضحة؟
لا، ما هو على إطلاقه.
And he mentions that this is not absolute. That whoever doesn't declare an innovator to be an innovator, then he's an innovator as well. He said, because even the question said, even after clarifying, he says, this is not absolute.
يبدع المبتدع قد يكون ما عنده بصيرة.
A person may not have a lot of insight regarding the topic, may not be able to understand what you're saying.
في معرفة ذلك، فالذي له بصيرة في معرفة ذلك فتح الله عليه، والآخر ما بدعه باعتبار أنه ما عرف ذلك أو ما عنده بصيرة حتى وإن بين له.
And this shows you the reputation that those who say that the Sheikh forces people to his opinion, and that if you don't agree to their Sheikh, then you're off it. It's either you're with us or against us. That's not correct. Who says that? Where does this lie with Qur'an, this has big horns, came from? You're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are not allowed. You can't lie upon people, even if they're your opponents.
اكتفت بعدم تبديعه بعض الشبهات ومجالس السوء أو غير ذلك من المعاذير.
And he may sit with some people, get some certain confusion, they give him doubts. That person is excused.
فليس كل من لم يبدع المبتدع فهو مبتدع على الإطلاق، ولكن هناك تفصيل في حق من أعان على الإثم والعدوان ولم يبدعه رضا ببدعته ولم يبدع.
But as for the person who's cooperating upon the transgression and he's pleased with the person's innovation,
هو أيضا بكونه يسير على مساره ويرضى
and he follows him in his pathway and his methodology,
طريقه ولم يبدعه باعتبار أن هذا قد وضح له بكل بيان، فمثل هذا نعم قد يقال لم يبدعه. والمرء على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل، قال أحمد هم منهم. فما كان من هذه الأدلة تنزل بحسبها، وما كان من ذلك أيضا يوضع بحسبه في من لم يصلح تبديعه على إطلاقه.
So he mentions those narrations that come up with the Salaf, that they're from them, a person upon the religion of his companion. It applies to this type of person more. He goes with his methodology, inclines to them, cooperates with them. And this type of person, you say, if he doesn't declare to an innovator, then he's with them. Like when Shaykh Ahmed Najmi was asked about the person who doesn't declare Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi, al-Maghrawi, Adnan al-Urur to be an innovator, what happens? He says that these type of people are clear innovators now. It's clear. And the one who doesn't declare them is an innovator as well with them. Meaning people that know about them and agrees with their way and their methodology and persist. They're then, like Sheikh here mentions, it may apply to them that they're an innovator as well. So it's not absolute. So this thing that people have with you must clarify your stance on every fitna, it depends what fitna you're referring to. And it also depends because there are things that may concern you. There's fitna perhaps happen in one land, so far, miles away, and yet it will affect the community that you're in, so you need to know about it. You must take an understanding and a stance that is correct. You can't be heedless. Another thing is that some people, they have a tendency to tell people, let's go to this major scholar and ask him. And whatever he says, we're going to go with. He's a kibar and a major scholar. And I'm going to take what he says. And how is it possible that we know and he doesn't know? This is what they say. So here's some answer to this by Sheikh Sulaiman Ruhaili.
في مسألة أن بعض العلماء حكم على الأصل وبعضهم حكم على علم
على علم النقل عن الأصل.
لو شيخنا
يعني بكل وضوح شيخنا الشيخ عبد المحسن العباد في حكمه على الرجال مبني على الأصل. الشيخ لا يقرأ. الشيخ.
So here tells you, give example, Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abbad sometimes may give a judgment upon the men, upon the asl, the origin, what he knows about them. Because the Shaykh does not read, he says. The Shaykh does not read that what is written about those men of mistakes of recent times.
لا يقرأ وإذا يأتي بشيء أحرقه. فهو يبني في كلامه وثنائه على بعض الأشخاص على الأصل. And
if he's given something written about that individual, he burns it, gets rid of it. And he praises some individual based upon the origin of what he used to know of them.
على المعلوم. فالشيخ جزاه الله خير معذور وكذا، ولكن هنا لا نقول إنه والله الشيخ عبد المحسن قال وفلان قال، لأن الشيخ عبد المحسن على معرفة.
So he says that the Shaykh here is excuse, and Allah will reward him. But in this, for us, we don't come and say, but the Shaykh said.
من طريقته من سنين يبني على الأصل بعلمه. لكن العلماء الذين يتكلمون في هذا يتكلمون بأمور جديدة ونواقل وأشياء وكلام وعبارات يعني هذا يعني أنا يعني مثلا هذا السليماني هذا الذي يسمى بأبي الحسن المأربي.
So here it mentions that the Shaykh, from what is known from him, is that perhaps he may praise certain individuals, certain things of the past that he knew about the individual. But some of the other Mashaykh, they are giving ruling on certain things that they have investigated of recent times. So in here, in this scenario, you can't come and use that these scholars have different stands. This doubt is not correct. And for this reason, Shaykh Salih Fawzan, in some of his answers, he mentions the following when he's asked.
فضيلة الشيخ وفقكم الله الذي لا يبدع المبتدع الذي بدعه العلماء وبدعوا منهجه وحذروا منه الذي لا يبدعه هل يلحق به؟
نعم الذي لا يبدعه يلحق به لأنه ما يرى أنه على بدعة وأن عمله ليس بدعة وأن الناس مخطئون في الحكم عليه بالبدعة.
Here the Shaykh mentions regarding if it's clear in scenarios where you know it's clear that this person he has a stance about someone that has become an innovator. He doesn't take a correct stance, that you may join him in that affair. Because you're deeming all these scholars to be in error, he says, and you are considering what he did not to be innovation. While in reality, an innovation is clear. So meaning in scenarios where it becomes clear-cut, and there's no more room for excuse, this could be applied. So we have to realize that these matters, it goes back to the truth in the matter. The truth. A person has to look to the truth. Like for example, some years ago when Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abbad, because a lot of people now, they have a tendency to rehash old matters. The book of Gentleness to Ahl Sunnah with Ahl Sunnah. Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abbad, he said in there, إن السلفيين انقسموا إلى قسمين من أجل رجلين. The Salafis have divided to two groups due to two men, and two scholars dividing amongst themselves. So at that time, Shaykh Ahmed Najmi, he responded by saying, وَالَّذِي يَظْهَرْ أَنَّكَ تَقْصُدُ بِرَجُلَيْن هُمَا الشيخ ربيع وأبو الحسن السليماني المأربي. So what's apparent is that you're referring to Shaykh Rabi' and Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi. And he says, this is a topic, مسألة حق ينصر ويؤيد وباطل يبين بطلانه. And the truth is to be supported and falsehood is to be invalidated. So, and this is at the time, and then later on, some of the same scholars who were with Abu al-Hasan, Shaykh Musa Abbad at that time, they end up warning and declaring Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi to be an innovator. So it became clear to them later on. And even they quote on Shaykh Ibn Abbad now speech that is different about Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi. So it shows you that a scholar may change his stance. You just follow the truth. So if you hear say we're dividing, the Salafis are dividing because of two men, it's not always like the same as Salafis are divided. Sometimes it's a real issue. There's someone who has become an innovator. Yet maybe it hasn't become clear to a particular scholar. But once it becomes clear, you have to support the truth. And he brings the hadith, Shaykh Ahmad Najmi, when he's responding to the words of Shaykh Ahmad Abdul Muhsin Abbad at the time. Hadith Ubad in Bukhari Muslim, he says, وَأَن نَقُولْ بِالْحَقِّ حَيْثُ مَا كُنَّا. We should speak of the truth wherever we are. It doesn't matter of your location. I'm a far GPS. It doesn't concern me what's happening over there. We speak the truth wherever we are. لَا نَخَافُ فِي اللَّهِ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ, he says. We don't fear the blame of the blamers. And that's why Shaykh Ibn Abbad, he has stance about certain individuals that deviated when it became clear to him. And we'll show you some of his words of examples just to show you that these people are different, who say, well, I don't have to have a stance. No, once it becomes clear to you in certain things, you should support. You should be against these people, wherever they are. So you should support a Sunni wherever land he's in, and you should be against Ahl Bid'ah or the people of deviation, wherever the land they are in.
نصيحة أخيرة، هل تحضر دروسه؟ والله ما ينبغي أن تحضر دروسه وهكذا. ما دام هذا وضعه. نعم.
So they asked Shaykh Ibn Abbad about Adnan Arur. Person, there was a time where the Mashaykh were differing and it wasn't clear. And he says, later on, that it's not appropriate to attend his classes if this is his condition. And even at that time, Shaykh Ibn Abbad didn't declare him to be an innovator, but yet he's warning from his classes. So some people now will come tell you, is he an innovator or is he Salafi? Is he an innovator or is he Salafi? No, even if a person is Salafi, but his condition, like Wad'u, the Shaykh said, Ibn Abbad, is not an appropriate state to take knowledge from someone, you don't attend. He doesn't have to be an innovator. And what is this that the person has to be an innovator for me to not take knowledge from him? Maybe he has certain things that may bring harm. Yet probably the ruling of innovator has not been declared on him yet. There's something of delay for a reason or two. But for you yourself, people are warning you to stay back for now. He mentions not to attend classes, being that this is his state.
وحكم عليك انك سني او انك بدعي، هذا لا يجوز. هذا لا يجوز الا اذا عرف عن المبتدعه انهم
So they asked Sheikh Saleh Fawzan about testing people based upon individuals. So first he mentions this is not correct. Then he says he gives an exception. This is where a lot of people leave the exception. A lot of times, I don't know why they leave out these exceptions. Important exceptions. The Shaykh says, except that is known to have hatred, like the innovators are known to have hatred for particular imams or great scholars. This is the exception he gives.
يعادون أهل السنة أو يعادون إماما من أئمة أهل السنة.
They're known to have animosity towards Ahl Sunnah. If it's known, he's saying, or a particular imam. And here it's allowed to test individuals based upon these matters.
فإن عداوتهم له دليل على ابتداعهم وانحراف.
So then here, once that becomes clear by testing people, that these people have hatred, and this is a sign that this person is innovation, in a state of innovation.
كالإمام أحمد رحمه الله. نعم. أما أنك تستعرض الناس وتسألهم عن فلان، هذا لا أصل له ولا ينبغي.
I give an example of what happened in the past for Imam Ahmed. People used to test people regarding Imam Ahmed. So it shows you there is an exception. If it's known in a particular region, the innovators, they stand out for their hatred for Ahlul Sunnah, and this can become like a distinguishing sign and a factor. You can know people, you can use this as a question to test people. But as for if it's not, and you're just going around doing surveys, he says, no, you shouldn't do that. So it shows you there is an exception to the matter. Like here's some words of Shaykh Zayd al-Madkhali, rahimahullah, when he was asked about testing people regarding individuals, either about the ulama sunnah, testing with the ulama sunnah, or the heads of Ahl Bid'ah. Is it suitable for this time? He said, لا شك يا أخي أن السلف الصالح كان يمتحنون الناس بالعلماء الذين عرفوا بالصلابة بالسنة والسلامة بالعقيدة والمنهج وعرفوا بالشدة على أهل الأهواء والبدع. There's no doubt that the Salaf Salih used to test individuals based upon scholars that were known for firmness and creed and aqeedah, being harsh against the people of innovation. So he mentions there's proof to that. And he said it's not محصور على شخص معين أو أشخاص, it's not confined to one individual or a number of individuals, but يمتحن الناس بكل صاحب سنة في كل زمان ومكان على الوصف الذي ذكرته. That the people it can be tested in all times, both people of sunnah in any place upon what has mentioned of guidelines. And he says also, كذلك يمتحن الناس بأهل البدع داعين إليها. Sometimes you can test people based upon certain callers of innovators. And he gives proofs for that. ماذا تقولون, like the Salaf al-Salih, they would ask. So this is an example and speech of it. Because we know there's narration of the Salaf, سموا لنا رجالكم, name for us your men. Name for us, this is a form of imtihan, test. فينظر إلى أهل السنة فيؤخذ عنهم وينظر إلى أهل البدع فلا يأخذ عنهم. Based upon his questioning, and led us to know who was Ahl Sunnah from Ahl Bid'ah. Name your men for us. People say, why are you questioning me? Why am I being tested? It's not absolute. Sometimes there is a need. Because some of the Salaf, they used to say, كنا إذا أردنا أن نكتب عن رجل سألنا عنه حتى يقال تريدون أن تزوجوا. Some of the Salaf, they wouldn't ask about a man to do that. That's why when Musa ibn Uqba came to Baghdad, and it was mentioned to Imam Ahmed, he has come. Imam Ahmed said, انظروا على من نزل وإلى من يأوي. Look to who he's going to go to and visit, and who he's going to descend on. Sometimes you can judge people based upon certain factors. So it's not absolute, yani, that we can't ask any questions. And who are you to ask? Sulaiman al-Taymi, who died in the year 143 of the Hijri, كان لا يحدث أحدا حتى يمتحنه. He would not share a hadith to anyone until he tests him and ask him. فيقول له الزنا بقدر, الزنا by qadr, decree. If he says yes, he will say, swear by Allah. And this is how some of the Salaf were. They would ask questions. What do you say about this? What do you say about that? Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, المؤمن محتاج إلى امتحان من يريد أن يصاحبه ويقارنه بنكاح وغيره. The believer is in need of testing and interrogating those by questioning them, of those who they want to take companions or accompany, or through marriage or other than that. He said معرفة أحوال الناس تارة بتكون بشهادات الناس وتارة تكون بالجرح والتعديل وتارة تكون بالاختبار والامتحان. Knowing the condition of the people sometimes is by the testimonies of others, what people say about them. And sometimes by jarh wa ta'dil, the criticism and the praise. And then sometimes it's by you testing them, asking them questions. It's not always feasible to hear what people are saying. So you have to resort to asking them, what do you say about this person? What do you think about this scholar? General questioning. What's wrong with that? This is something that's known. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the Khalifa, he would test people before giving them positionings. Even in the dunya, people test just to see certain individuals where they're at. Also, it's warning about people, and it's not only confined to the innovators that we mentioned. Sheikh Muhammad Salih Uthaymin in Liqa Bab al-Maftuh, number 120, he says, الكلام في أهل البدعة ومن عندهم أفكار غير سليمة ومنهج غير مستقيم هذا من النصيحة وليس من الغيبة. He says, speaking about innovators or those who have not sound ideologies or not an upright methodology. It doesn't have to be. Is he an innovator or is he not an innovator? Is he Salafi? If he's Salafi, he doesn't have a good methodology, doesn't have a good stance. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, you can have that. Sheikh says, منهج غير مستقيم or أفكار غير سليمة, some things that wrong with him, that's making you. Because he says, وإذا رأينا إنسانا له منهج معين عواقبه السيئة. We find a person has a particular methodology or stance that has negative results with it. He says, علينا أن نبين ذلك حتى يسلم الناس من شره. Upon us to declare that to the people. He said, وإذا رأينا شخصا عنده أفكار تخالف ما كان عليه السلف فعلينا أن نبين ذلك حتى لا يغتر به الناس. If we see someone who has ideologies that oppose the way of the Salaf Salih, it's upon us to clarify that to people. And he also says, فعلينا أن نبين أنه, he said, فإذا رأينا أحدا مبتدعا ينشر بدعته. So he clarifies, and he mentioned 3 scenarios. That if one is an innovator, another one has this, and one has that. So it's not confined that the person, if he's Salafi, what's wrong? And there's certain exemptions. Sometimes you may even cut off attending for a Salafi if there's greater harm going to come out by you going to a particular place. I think too is about the bayans. People sometimes they do bayans for one of the 2 reasons they're requested. Sometimes the innovator is requested to make a bayan, clarification. Like Sheikh Salih Sadlan rahimahullah, one of the major scholars, he said, توبة المبتدع تكون بأن يعلم أن ما هو عليه بدعة فيعترف بها ويرجع عنها ويعتقد ضد ما كان يعتقد منها. أما إذا زين له سوء عمله فرآه حسنا فلا توبة له ما دام يرى ذلك حسنا. He mentioned the tawbah of innovators. He has to come to know that what he was upon was innovation. He has to confess it and recant from it and believe the opposite from it. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَأَصْلَحُوا وَبَيَّنُوا. Sometimes people request bayans for this reason. And even some of them used to say, حَتَّى يَظْهَرْ مِنْكَ, until I see what of sunnah, what was apparent from you before bid'ah. Same degree. Clarification. Also, the second reason is for tamayuz. Sheikh Mubi used to say, Man tasra da'watuna illa bitamayuz. And clarifying things beyond upon clarity. And a da'i has to be distinct in his call. He needs to sometimes clarify his positions from certain things so he doesn't be added along with other people. And people say, why am I being requested to clarify? And there's a confusion. There's a lot of confusion. People are scared now. There's so many people of disguise hiding under certain ways and how people just want to know what are you on before they take knowledge from you. إن هذا العلم دين. This knowledge is your deen. فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. Why do you feel pressured? It's an easy matter. I'm like this, I've taken this, and I take from Ahlul Sunnah, and I avoid these type of individuals because of X, Y, and Z. Clarifying for clarity. Another matter is sometimes people, they assume that when you speak about Jarh wa Ta'deel or you question people, Probably your class will start with 100 people and then it'll decrease all the way to 2. And this is not how you should be looked at. Your affair is to clarify. Well, if you speaking about matters of khair and goodness is going to reduce your numbers, then al-jama'a ma wafiq al-haq walau kunta wahdak. The truth is what is the jama'ah is what is accords the truth even if you're alone. And some people assume that reputations is the one that divides the people and scares people away. Here's some words of Shaykh Salih Fawzan.
يقول السائل يقول كثير من الناس إن الرادين على أهل البدع إنه سبب للفرقة.
أي نعم فرقة بين الحق والباطل.
So the Shaykh Salih Fawzan, some people say that people who refute are the cause of division between the people. He said, yes, they're divided between truth and falsehood. So we're divided between the people of truth and the people of misguidance. And he said, we're going to continue to refute, he said. He said, refuting of the scholars is not for divide, it's to actually unite people upon the truth. Because leaving people upon misguided, that's what really divides people. You want to leave people like that? Have a big number of gathering, everybody has different stances. This guy is musharriqin wa gharribin. Everybody's all over the place. It's going to cause so much confusion. There's such an atmosphere. It's not a healthy atmosphere. Perhaps total opposites of stance that could even lead to adawa and animosity. It's good to clarify and try to bring certain things of truth so people can try to be united.
على الضلال وعلى الأقوال الباطلة هذا هو اللي يفرق المسلمين. أما بيان الحق لهم ليجتمعوا عليه فهذا دعوة للاجتماع وليس دعوة للفرقة. الدعوة للفرقة أن يقال لا يرد على أهل الباطل. هذه الدعوة للفرقة.
This is what it is. People think that not refuting is what unites and brings numbers together. And he says the opposite happens. People actually become divided. And here's some words of Imam Ahmed. He was asked by Abu Dawud, Ara, that I see a man with Ahlul Sunnah, or he says, I see a man from Ahlul Sunnah with a man from Ahlul Bid'ah. Atruk kalama, should I leave off speaking to him because I've seen him with him? He says, La, no. He says, upon you to clarify to him that the person that he was with was a person of innovation. If he leaves off speaking to him after that, فَأَلْحِقْهُ بِهِ, add him to it, join him along. Sometimes people may be tagged along with who they are. As it comes, Abdullah Saud says, Al-mar'u bi-khadani. A man is upon what his friend is upon. And so we should not be degrading people just because they're applying what is of general of the advice of the scholars, past and present. So you don't know Usul al-Thalatha, you don't know this, you haven't studied this big book, so that means you can't talk about how to avoid. No, if a person is doubtful about a matter, he can just take a step and take back. Why does he have to learn the biggest, thickest matters? He can just take a step back until he's comfortable with the individual. He doesn't have to push himself forward. He can warn some of the basics of people and tell them that these people have spoken about this individual and these scholars are reliable to me. And I'm passing the same message as you, that this is what they brought forward. He doesn't have to be an expert in every field to tell people that. There's some things people, alhamdulillah, yassar Allah lahum, al-fitra, natural disposition, and certain things to know when people are in opposition and they're causing people, they stay away from such people. There's certain alamat, signs. Yes, they're probably falling short in something else, but that doesn't mean that we can degrade them for taking a stance of avoiding certain individuals. Another thing too is we shouldn't go to as well the extreme of having wala and bara upon individuals, but we should have wala and bara upon the truth. That's our allegiance and our disownment that we disown people, give allegiance based upon the truth, not individuals. Here's some speech of Sheikh Salih Sindhi.
ولذلك على كل عاقل أن يحذر تلبيس الشيطان، فإن من الناس من ينصب له متبوعا يعقد عليه الولاء والبراء والقبول والرد والمحبة والبغض، وهذه طريقة أهل الأهواء والبدع وليست طريقة أهل السنة والجماعة. أهل السنة هم الذين ليس لهم أحد يعقدون عليه وعلى محبته وعلى ولايته وعلى قبول قوله الولاء والبراء إلا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
And this applies even for a major scholar, from the senior scholars, the most knowledgeable scholar, that we're going to accept whatever he says. And I'm upon what that scholar is upon. And if the scholar says this, then I'm saying that. And if that scholar says, no, we don't do that. We don't go to extreme. So it goes both ways. Don't go to extreme. Whether it be of personality of major scholars that you read whatever they say and you take it blindly. No, you can't. You have to investigate. Our wala bara is for the truth, not for individuals. They can say something today and can't from tomorrow.
رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما من ينصب له إنسانا يجعله عيارا على الحق، وبالتالي من وافق هذا الإمام قرب ومن خالفه أبعد، وليس هذا لأجل اتباع الكتاب والسنة، إنما لهوى لهؤلاء في شيخهم وإمامهم.
So we clarify that as desires. People being based upon a particular scholar becomes the yardstick they judge by whatever he says. That's not fair. So those who went to extreme in that, well, and also those who went watered down, they went to also extreme. They act like they didn't fall into this. They fell into it too, because they'll keep bringing up certain senior scholars. His beard became gray. This person, you're thinking that he's on like falsehood. SubhanAllah, we don't judge people on that. We don't judge like that. If a person is like this, the scholar, no matter how much virtues and merits he has, he can say something wrong. He can deviate. He can join the people that are misguided. We don't hold on to these things. Our wala and bara is for the truth. It goes both ways. Those who were refuting those who went to extreme about it and putting to a particular sheikh, and those other people that are obsessed with personalities of scholars, as they feel like a particular scholar can not say something wrong, or because of his seniority is like it's preventing us from saying something against what he's saying. No, we can't be like that extreme. These are just some words of advice that I wanted to clarify. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us what we heard, to make us so people hear speech and follow the best of it. If I said something perhaps was of any shortcomings of the translations, inshallah the audios, the people can return back to it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us all. Subhanakallah.